Hello and welcome to Author Talk with me, LG Thompson. Now, the concept behind Author Talk is that on Tuesdays I'll be answering the kind of questions that writers often get asked by readers, and on Fridays I'll be sharing some of my favourite books with you. Books that have excited me or that I've enjoyed. I'm not critiquing the books, I'm just sharing the good news. Today is Tuesday, and so I'm going to be answering a question, and today's question is: do you listen to music when you're writing? So before I go on to that, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Do you listen to music when you're writing? Well, the short answer is no, not when I'm in the actual physical act of writing. I would perhaps find it a bit of a distraction. Although I'd probably tune it out after a while. Like, the main concern I would have is that I would start absorbing the lyrics and maybe kind of like regurgitating them in some way. I don't know. Like, I don't have anything on when I'm actually doing the physical sitting down and writing. But in the other aspects, when I'm researching, definitely I listen to music when I'm researching. I listened to a lot of music when I was working on Bitter Fruit. Bitter Fruit is a memoir that I wrote. It's set in the 1980s. It picks up from when Modernist Dreams, Brutalist Nightmares left off. And basically just starts from me going to art school in 1981 and takes us right through to 1989. So when I was writing, I decided to give the chapters titles, as I'd done that in Modernist Dreams, Brutalist Nightmares, and I wanted to sort of keep that going. It's not something I do in novels usually. And the first chapter, well, I think like in the very, very first paragraph of the book, I mentioned the Specials, who were a British ska group back in the late 70s, early 80s. Absolutely fantastic group, absolutely loved them. I'll just read that first paragraph to you and it'll just give you a flavour. It was September 1981 and I'd not long turned 17. Maggie Thatcher was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and would remain in office for the entire soul-sucking decade. Ghost Town by the Specials hit the top of the charts that summer, the song a fitting anthem for a country beset by riots, protests, strikes and rising unemployment. Early 80s Britain had about as much charm as a cup of bin juice on a hot day. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, former actor Ronald Reagan was President of the United States of America, and though few were aware of it, the AIDS epidemic had begun. Happy days. So it just seems like from that quite an obvious step from there to like call the first chapter Ghost Town. And it was quite a logical step from then to just name each chapter after a song, either something that was very, very popular at the time, for example, It's a Sin by the Pet Shop Boys, or something that I was listening to at that time. So there's a chapter called People Are Strange, which is a song by The Doors, and I was listening to them. So music goes right through that because it was, I suppose, because it was my teenage years into early 20s. And music just was such an important part of my life. So every chapter was named after a song, and we made a playlist, and these were put out on YouTube and Spotify. And it gives a really, really kind of nice flavour of the 80s. There was actually a lot of really good music around in the 80s. Some shocking stuff, as always, but a lot of really, really good music. Music was really tribal in the 1980s. It was a really, really interesting time. You know, like you still had that like punk, post-punk thing going on. Ska, there was mods, the psychobilly thing kicked off. There was the whole new wave thing. There was just there was a lot of exciting stuff going on, and then you had the rise of the Smiths and Pet Shop Boys, that kind of thing. So mid-80s, one of the projects I was doing at art school was on like the musical culture, youth culture, and I would take sketchbooks into nightclubs and I would draw people while they were dancing. And it's kind of funny, like, there was because some of those little sketches have made their way into Bitter Fruit. There's a sort of class thing there as well. I think like all those kind of exciting musical movements all come like from the working classes. They come from the ground up and then they're appropriated. So I think I was really interested in class and working class and youth culture before I even realised that I was. You know, films like Saturday Night, Sunday Morning really woke me up to that kind of thing. I'll maybe discuss that in another episode. But yeah, so like going out to the nightclubs and wandering about the streets, just taking photographs of people. And then when I went down to London, back in the days when I had a Mohican, I had like American tourists were like stopping me and asking to take my photograph. So yeah, the whole thing kind of went round and about. So yeah, music has always just like been there. It's important. I kind of think it's maybe it's the most uniting of all the arts, possibly. Like when you're in a gig and everybody's really into it. I mean, it's a phenomenal experience. You know, like you're all having that experience. It's just I guess it reaches people in an active way. You know, like I suppose going to an art gallery is a fairly passive thing. Reading a book's fairly passive. I mean, I know it can be very exciting and stimulating, but actually, like, music is so raw and visceral, and like you're there with other people, or you can be. You know, I'm talking about live music. You're in there with other people, and if you're in the mosh pit, yeah, that's crazy. I was in the mosh pit at Alexandra Palace the first time I went to see 21 Pilots. It was the Emotional Roadshow. And the thing there, I mean, I think it held about 10,000 or something, but it was just this great big mass of people. And so, like, you know, like there's a surge when like a favourite song comes on. There was when the warm-up act came on, there was a surge. And then, of course, when 21 Pilots came onto the stage, there was a big surge. So, like, just when you think, like, you know, kind of go, oh, breathe. And then they did Lane Boy, and oh my God, like the surge just came, like, and you could feel sort of swirls and eddies in the crowd. It was quite phenomenal. I actually like fell over at one point. That was later on. Got up pretty quickly, but I used that feeling, that kind of terror, excitement sort of thing. It's like almost like you're swimming. You can go like that and let people go in front of you, like you're swimming backwards. It's quite a phenomenal thing, like the way it all moves, like a kind of a river in full spate. And you know, if there's rocks there and the river all moves, it's just like it's quite crazy. But yes, I actually used that experience when I was writing the New Dark trilogy. I think there's a riot in it or something like that, and it was just to get that idea, like, of all the bodies, and I used my own experience for that. I mean, that's you know, where do you get your ideas from? Yeah, like being in a mosh pit. In fact, when I went back to Dundee, I'm not sure if I actually mentioned this in the book, but it was quite a thing for me. I'd gone to art school in Dundee, and then a few years later I went back to the city to work, joined the Central Library. And at that time you could go there, you could actually, like, you know, the way you borrow books, you could actually borrow LPs, albums. I used to go up and like just borrow all sorts of records. I kind of acted with that the way that I did when I first got into the adult library when I was a kid, where I was just kind of indiscriminate. I was just like trying this and trying that. Book-wise, that led me to reading all sorts of things, from like a biography of Malcolm X to a book about cooking with chocolate, a John Lennon book, a book about the interwar years in Germany when inflation had just gone out of control. So I was just like, yeah, just reading anything and everything that came my way. And I kind of did the same with the albums. So I borrowed an album by the Fine Young Cannibals, and then there was all sorts of what was that? I think I tried a bit of classical music. I was starting to listen to a lot of blues at the time, so there was things like Robert Johnson, that kind of things. But it was just like anything that kind of grabbed my attention, I would just like borrow these LPs, take them home and listen to them. I think you got them out for a couple of weeks or something. So it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, like bitter fruit and music really kind of go hand in hand together. I've written about music in other ways, like one of the bands that was a big influence on me was Devo, and I actually wrote my dissertation about them when I was at art school. It was one of the things that I destroyed I think it was like a couple of years after I left art school, and I kind of just had this kind of massive crisis, and I destroyed a lot of my artwork, ripped up my dissertation, just thought that everything that I'd done was absolutely awful. Bit of a shame, because I would quite like to read that now. But I explore, so Devo are kind of mentioned in passing in Bitter Fruit, because I walk about, I'd ordered myself a Devo suit from America, and I was walking around Dundee wearing this thing. And I expanded on that quite a bit for a piece I wrote for Power Cut magazine. So Power Cut magazine focuses on work that is either set in or about or references the period 1930 to 1999. They're all about the 20th century. It's a fantastic independently produced literary magazine. And for them, I wrote a piece on how Devo had influenced my life, and about how it was more than just the music. They were quite a political band. They arose out of the tragedy of the 1970 Kent State Massacre, when the Ohio National Guard opened fire on unarmed students protesting the US bombing of Cambodia in a planned escalation of the Vietnam War. The idea behind the band was that as a species we were de-evolving, but they were never just about the music. They were a kind of like multi-layered, multimedia sort of group. So they're really, really interesting. And one of the things I wrote about when in this piece for Power Cut magazine was about the reactions I got when I was walking about Dundee wearing this yellow plastic Devo suit. People reacted in quite an angry way. It was so strange. I mean, I was completely covered up from my neck down to my wrists, down to my ankles, and I was wearing boots, either pink Jelly Wellies or black monkey boots. So completely covered up, but this just seemed to upset people. I thought it was really, really strange. I thought it was quite intriguing. So yeah, Devo, quite an influence on me. Other books, Boyle's Law. I think when I was writing that, I was obsessing over David Bowie's Hunky Dory album, in particular Life on Mars. I went over the top on that song. I had it on a loop. I was just playing it constantly. And so when I needed some music for Charlie Boyle to be into, it just happened to be David Bowie, and in particular Life on Mars, that he focused on. Music research, music enjoyment, music not while I'm writing. Thank you very much. My current music obsession is 21 Pilots. I say current, I've actually been fairly obsessed with them for a few years. I used to listen to a lot of Frank Sinatra, less so now, but still occasionally dip in. But for a long time, I was really obsessing over Sinatra. You might have noticed I obsess over things. So if I'm listening to something, I'm listening to it all the time. And there was something about 21 Pilots that made me think about Frank Sinatra, and I thought it was something to do with the phrasing. And that was quite interesting. One of the times that I've gone to see them, I go with my daughter, MK Thompson. She's an artist, and it was her that introduced me to 21 Pilots. The first time we went, she was only 15. So we've been going to see them for quite a wee while now. And we went to see them in Glasgow a few years ago, and she got tickets to go and see them during the day. While we were in the queue, she went along to HMV to meet them. And in the queue, they were playing Frank Sinatra. And I was like, yes, that absolutely makes sense to me. There's something about that kind of whole the phrasing of the music. There's something about how the words are delivered. I mean, like completely different kinds of music, but there's a strand in there. So that's my current and continuing music obsession. Okay, so short answer to the question, do you listen to music when you're writing? Not when I'm actually physically writing, but in the research period and at almost every other time, yes, I do listen to a lot of music. When I say a lot of music, it's a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again. That's just part of my personality trait. So that's it for today's author talk with me, LG Thompson. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.